This is reviews of Surface laptops. The new Microsoft. It's one of the most compelling laptops Microsoft's ever made, following in the footsteps of Surface Book. Microsoft could have gone for faster hardware, but it won't matter too much, because the unique form factor is probably the biggest selling point here. In time for Windows 11, the Surface Laptop Studio follows in the footsteps of the Surface Book line of premium convertible laptops. It means the Surface Book 3 was the last version of Microsoft's unique laptop with a removable tablet display, but in so many ways, the Surface Laptop Studio feels like the fusion of the Surface Laptop and the Surface Book. Almost every complaint we had with the Surface Book is dealt with here. Intel Tiger Lake H35 chips replace the U-series chips, the touchpad is bigger and has haptic feedback, and the giant bezels are gone. There's no removable display, however, so if you like that, you're out of luck. This is just as flexible and versatile, but so much more comfortable to use. Even though we're sad about the Surface Book, the Surface Laptop Studio is everything we've wanted from a redesigned Microsoft laptop. Starting at $1,599, around £1,200, 2,200 Australian dollars, Surface Laptop Studio will be in stores October 5, at least in the US. According to the Microsoft UK store, the Surface Laptop Studio will be available next year, but it's not even listed yet in Australia. At that price, you'll get an Intel Core i5 11th generation processor, 16GB of RAM, and a 256GB SSD. Every component in the device can be bumped up for a price, and the top-of-the-line version goes for $3,099, about £2,270, 4,260 Australian dollars. A price like that gets you an Intel Core i7-11370H, 32GB of RAM, a 2TB SSD, and dedicated NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050T graphics, but it's still hard to swallow. Until we have more information, we won't be able to tell you what these configurations will actually cost. The Surface Laptop Studio looks a lot like, well, the Surface Studio. Surface Studio has become a legendary PC for artists thanks to its easel-like display. With the Surface Laptop Studio, Microsoft's design is translated into a PC form factor, and while it's not the first laptop to do that, it's one of the best we've used so far. The closest comparison is to the Acer Concept Easel, which has a very similar design, but where that laptop has a hinge on the back, the Surface Laptop Studio is a lot like the Surface Pro line of tablets, and the easel mechanism and hinge looks a lot like those. So when the laptop is closed, the lid is smooth. Couple that with the elegant gray colorway, and you've got a laptop that's as beautiful as any in Microsoft's Surface lineup, but with unique features that will be valuable to artists on the go, especially if they're working on projects that'll need the extra processing power the Surface Laptop Studio provides. The hinge isn't just a fancy thing. Typing on the keyboard is just as comfortable as ever, with deep travel and near-perfect spacing. In addition to the larger trackpad, Microsoft has made it haptic, making it similar to the trackpad on a MacBook Pro. With this trackpad, you can click anywhere on it with the same amount of feedback and accuracy. Depending on your preferences, you can even change the haptic feedback the trackpad gives when you click. You get the best of both worlds with it. It's even better than a MacBook Pro trackpad, at least in our very limited time with it. The speakers are located under the keyboard just like the Surface Laptop 4, which isn't ideal but still better than having them on the bottom. 2 tweeters are under the keyboard, and 2 woofers are on the bottom right and left. As we were in a loud room, we didn't get a chance to test these. Then we'll see what they can do when they get the laptop in. On the bottom, there's some ventilation along the sides, just below that ridge around the edge. According to Microsoft, it's some of the best ventilation it's ever made in a laptop, which it'll need. That's the most powerful processor Microsoft's ever put in anything but the Surface Studio. The Surface Laptop Studio, however, finally supports Thunderbolt 4. That's one of the biggest breaths of fresh air it brings. Right side has 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports. It's got a Surface Connect port and a headphone jack on the right. It's awesome that Microsoft finally decided to add Thunderbolt support after years of refusing to, but it also means that all the legacy ports have been removed. As always, the display is gorgeous. With a resolution of 2400 by 1600, the Pixel Sense display is perfect for the hardware available. It's the only laptop in its class with a 120Hz refresh rate, which makes navigating Windows 11 feel incredibly smooth and responsive. This kind of refresh rate is typically associated with gaming, but it's going to be good for artists, since it will cut down on the delay between drawing something on the screen and it showing up, not that there was much of a delay before. It looks like a laptop from this decade for the first time after Microsoft nixed the bezels. Laptops these days have narrower bezels, but they're still not as thinnest out there, so that's a good thing. Surface Laptop Studio has a tablet mode, so no bezels would be a nightmare. I like how the top bezel is thicker than the sides. It also has a light sensor that will adjust color temperature to match ambient lighting, as well as a 1080p webcam that can be used for Windows Hello Facial Login. The good news is you can turn it off if you don't like it. Because we don't have the Surface Laptop Studio yet, we can't comment definitively on its performance, but so far, so good. Microsoft's Surface Book always used low-power U-series processors instead of the higher-powered H-series chips found on most of the best laptops for creatives. Surface Books always had a disadvantage, since artists that needed more power had to go somewhere else. Microsoft hasn't gone as far in this direction as we'd like yet. The Surface Laptop Studio uses Intel Tiger Lake H35 processors, which are meant for thin and light gaming laptops and workstations, as well as thin and light workstations. In comparison to the Dell XPS 15, it just performs better when it comes to creative tasks like video and photo editing. It's something we'll have to see in depth when we do a review, but it's something to keep in mind, especially with the Surface Laptop Studio's high price tag. Surface Laptop Studio is definitely an ultra-premium device at a premium price. While the Surface Book does take everything we love about it and removes all of our bugbears, it's still one of the laptops we're most anticipating for Windows 11. Even if we get a little more horsepower than usual, we'll definitely have to take this thing to its limits when we get it in for a full review, since Microsoft hasn't been eager to include the best mobile hardware in its laptops. Even so, artists will probably ignore the low-power components on offer just to get their hands on the pretty display and easel hinge, and we wouldn't blame them for a second.